Hey everybody, hope you're having an awesome day. Welcome to Piano Lessons with Elvin, episode 20. Today we're going to just talk about time signatures and measures. And really I'll just go over it completely from scratch and really try to give you a nice thorough explanation. I've had to explain this so many times throughout my years of teaching, ranging from a very young kid, 6 years old, to grown-ups. So there's many ways I tend to approach it. I'm going to try to do kind of a middle of the road method. For this particular video, I'll assume that you already have some of the basics covered in terms of the types of notes, like quarter notes, whole notes, those kind of things. So it's not a 100% beginner lesson. You can refer to my other videos here. But yeah, I'm just going to grab the phone. We'll get rocking out on this. Okay, so I like to explain it. So here is, I'll just show you in a song briefly. Every song, will have a time signature. It's always here. If I go to any song in the book, whoops, let me just see. It's going to some random stuff. Okay, boom. This one says 3/4. This one says 4/4. That's 4/4 as well. Here's another 3/4. What do we got? 4/4. Because this is a kid book, they don't diversify it that much. Let me just kind of open this randomly. Okay, what do we got here? 3/4. Then if you're looking at there, we also get this 5/4. So there's something different. Let me just find one more random thing here. Okay, yeah. And then in this one, 2/4. So if you're doing very advanced works like these Debussy preludes or kid books, it's all the same concept, same method, same way to understand it. A key signature or a time signature is a time signature. So when we look at it here, the first thing I like to point out is, what does this mean? 4 and 4. I'm just going to throw this out there. Lots of times you'll see 4/4 written as just a big C. Let me see if I can actually find one of those off the top of my head from one of these books. A nice C here. I don't want to spend too much time on this. I'll look at the end, see if I can find one. But when we first see it, the first thing I'll ask a student is like, what is this? Why? What does this mean? What does the bottom mean? It's pretty easy to explain that the top number here just means how many total number of beats in a measure. Then the bottom number is what type of note gets a beat, like what type of note visually represents a beat. A beat is just a steady pulse in music. So depending on what's in the bottom, a beat can be represented in many different ways. For a long time, when you're starting off with music, you'll always see a 4 on the bottom. So it almost becomes irrelevant for the student to even know what this bottom 4 means, because everything they're playing has a 4 in the bottom. It'll be 3/4, 2/4, 4/4. So they kind of just take it for granted that this bottom number almost doesn't mean anything. And then all of a sudden they'll get one day to a time signature like 6/8, which is one of the next steps. And they go, well, what the heck is the 8? And then when you're more advanced, you'll start to see things with the 2. This is very rare, but sometimes you'll see a 16. So, but the top thing is always an easier concept. Just how many beats are in a measure. Bottom, what type of note visually represents the beat. And that's what I kind of wrote here. If there's a 2 on the bottom, that's represented by a half note gets the beat. 4 on the bottom, a quarter note gets the beat. 8 on the bottom, an eighth note gets the beat. 16 on the bottom, a 16th note gets the beat. And really quick, I don't think I explained this. C actually stands for common time. And 4/4 is the most common time signature in like all of music. I'd say if you're listening to any regular mainstream song from, if it's pop, rock, hip hop, even with so much classical, really anything, I'm going to say maybe a 95% chance we're in 4/4 here. So that's why they lots of times will label it with a big C, because it is the most common time that we get. So what I wanted to show here on this next area is how different time signatures with an alternate number on the bottom, but the same one on the top, can look so different. No matter what, here at the top is always 3 beats in a measure. 3/2, 3 beats in a measure, 3 beats in a measure, 3/3. But because the number on the bottom changes, how it appears, the visual representation of the beat alters. So here we have 3 beats in a measure, half note gets the beat. So we'll get 3 half notes in a measure, boom. 3 beats in a measure, quarter note gets the beat. 1, 2, 3, boom. 3, 8, 3 beats in a measure, eighth note gets the beat. There's 3 eighth notes. 3, 16, 3 beats in a measure, 16th note gets the beat. Now, that is a confusing point for kids because when they first learn music, and I even do kind of the ignorance is bliss on this, and I try not to confuse them too much with all these bottom numbers here because they're not going to be exposed to it for a while. So a lot of times will say, don't even worry about what this bottom thing means, because the first thing when you first learn notes, everyone learns quarter notes get 1 beat, half notes get 2 beats, dotted half notes get 3 beats, whole notes get 4 beats, then the eighth note gets half a beat, which that is a bit more down the line when you first learn that. But this is only true when there's a 4 on the bottom, because the 4 represents a quarter note, and that is what represents 1 beat in this context. But if we change the bottom number here, 8, where now an eighth note gets a beat, so an eighth note gets 1 beat. Now that all alters the ratio. What was 1 beat with the 4 on the bottom, a quarter note, now gets 2 beats because the 8's on the bottom. And if an eighth note, which did get half a beat here, we're just trying to double this up. If there's half a beat, half plus a half equals a whole. So there's 2 eighth notes inside a quarter note. So when we're in this case and the eighth note gets 1 beat, there'll still be 2 eighth notes inside the quarter note, which is why it gets 2 beats here, since the eighth represents 1. A dotted quarter note consists of 3 eighth notes in it, which is why it gets 3 beats. A half note gets 4 beats. Here, with the 4 on the bottom, the half note gets 2 beats because there's 2 quarter notes inside of it. Now that there's an eighth note as the beat, half notes get 4 beats because, we could think there's 4 half notes or 4 eighth notes inside a half note, or 2 quarter notes inside a half note. 2 times 2 to get the 4. Dotted half note for 6 beats, which here the dotted half note for 3 beats. You could pretty much times it by 2. 4 times 2 is 8. You can just double the ratio for it. And then the reverse happens with a 2 on the bottom, which is when a half note gets a beat, which these are really quite rare. So if a half note represents 1 beat, things are getting small quick. Because now in this, there's 2 quarter notes inside a half note, which would then mean a quarter note would get half a beat. Half plus a half equals 1. Then a whole note, which usually we think of as getting 4 beats, because, we're so used to having 4 in the bottom, 4 quarter notes in a whole note. Now this gets 2, since the half note gets 1 beat, and there's 2 half notes in the whole note. And then finally, an eighth note gets 1/4 of a beat. There's 4 eighth notes in a half note. And then, so you think about how small these can get here. And the main thing I want to point out here is how things present themselves on the page can vary a lot, and this is why I wanted to keep them on the same note. But we can always keep one thing consistent as making sure everything adds up here. So in 4/4 time, here's a half note's 2 beats. 2 plus 1 plus 1, 4. You draw the measure. Here's a whole note, that gets 4 beats, measure. Dotted half note, 3 beats, plus 1, measure. In 6/8, now things have changed. Eighth note gets the beat. Dotted quarter note will get 3 beats because there's 3 eighth notes within this rhythm. So 3, and then here's 3 eighth notes. 3 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, 6. Here's a quarter note, that gets 2 beats. 2 plus 1, and then plus 3. Now in 3/2, where we get the half note on the bottom, this whole note here will get 2 beats. So we remember we're adding up to 3 here. 2 beats, there's a half note, so that's 1 beat in this. 2 plus 1 is 3, measure. Then here's 6 quarter notes here. In this context, quarter notes get half a beat. So, half plus a half, 1, 1, 1. So then that adds up to 3. Now, I wanted to point out one of these. So that's what measurers do. They keep track of how many beats have been written. And once you hit the total amount, you draw the measure to keep track of it, and then you restart it. Now, one thing with measures, they also help visually. If, the eyes love to find patterns, and it's really nice in music when you can see these separation points. Otherwise, it's just this huge mess, and the eyes can, honestly, it's hard to make sense of it. It's really, I'll talk more specifically about sort of the art of notation, because there's so many rules to it for things to present it well. But, this is just a random WC prelude here, but you can see these measures here, just like looking at the page. It's so nice when I can separate these out. And even within it, there's things even more separate. We can see here's half of the measure, there's the other half of the measure. So you can just constantly find ways to visually split it, which really helps for you to comprehend and process the song. Now, one other thing I wanted to point out with time signatures was visual representation doesn't always dictate a difference in actual sound. So let's say I'm doing, and I'll just let's say I'm just doing this rhythm here. Now, probably in your mind, you're assuming quarter notes because that's just the first stuff we're exposed to. In that case, I'd be in the time signature of 4/4. Quarter notes get one beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. But I could just as easily say I'm in 4/8. 4 beats in a measure, eighth note gets the beat. So here's eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I could even say we're in, let's say 4/2. 4 beats in a measure, now the half note gets the beat. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, so there's 4 half notes. You could think they're quick half notes, and then maybe the eighth notes were slower and blah, blah, blah. But the point I'm getting at here is, when I'm hitting this, how do you perceive it? You could think of these as insanely fast whole notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you could think about them as quarter notes. 1, 2, 3. You could think about them as 16th notes. 1, E, and, So just to point that out, how it's really the ratio in how it presents itself on the page. And that's, so like in theory, the difference between, let's say, 3/8 and 3/4, here, I'll just kind of mark it here. So I have 3/4 and I have 3/8. 3/4, cool. 3 beats in a measure, quarter note gets the beat. Here's 3 quarter notes, boom. 3/8, 3 beats in a measure, eighth note gets the beat. Here's 3 eighth notes, boom. If I were to play that, I'll just go 3/4, 3/8. And you go, well, what the heck's the difference here? And in a way, there isn't a difference. It's what the composer decides to do to represent this chord. There's kind of some nitpicky things if you really get into the weeds of it with what particular beats are more important, these kind of things. I don't want to get into that stuff here. It's more just having you understand how, just the basics of time signatures here. Like example, in 4/4, there's this, if we zoom in a bit more with it, beats 1 are strong, beats 3 are kind of strong. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. In 3/4, beats 1s are huge. 1, if I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that would be, so anytime you want to do a waltz, all waltzes are in 3/4. If they're not in 3/4, it can't be a waltz. So 6/8 has a flow of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can kind of see how there's these little different pulses, which that's not necessarily, it's a bit relevant to time signatures because it's about rhythm, and time signatures is a way to segregate rhythm into beats and separate them out by measures here. But yeah, so a big takeaway here is top number, always number of beats, bottom number, what type of note represents a beat visually. Doesn't necessarily mean you'll have a change in sound. As I was pointing out, you could play the same exact thing, same speed, but they're represented differently because of what's on the bottom. And that's kind of up to the composer's taste. Now, it's the most common to see 4s and 8s. Way more common. This is super common. This is common. This is, I'd say, very rare, and this is, like, also rare. There's even, I could do 32 in the bottom, which would be 32nd notes get the beats, and for all intents and purposes, that just doesn't exist. Yeah, and I just wanted you to also think that from the beginning, we always learn chord notes get 1 beat, but that's technically wrong. It only gets 1 beat if there's a 4 in the bottom, because that is what represents a beat. Chord notes represent 1 beat. but that differs depending on what number is on the bottom. And yeah, so I think that would be pretty good here. And I showed you some nice examples in songs. And one thing to point out with time signature is just as a compositional tool, let's go here. When we do time signatures, it presents itself no matter what at the very beginning of a song, right underneath the tempo, and what this will be called a key signature. I'll do a video soon on that, because you need to know before you play it what to do. 3/4, okay, 3 beats in a measure, and the quarter note gets the beat. So if I'm looking here, look here. So there's 3 quarter notes, 1, 2, 3. Now here's a quarter note and eighth notes. 1 plus half plus half plus half plus half. 1, 2, and 3, and boom, draw the measure. And then, let me show you one other one. Oh yeah, one thing here, but once you mark it at the beginning, you don't have to mark it anymore afterwards. So you notice that the time signature only presents itself at the very beginning of a song. Now, if a composer changes time signatures in the middle of a song, then he has to mark it again. But you'll notice you don't see any time signature here. You'll always see the key signature, which in this case is that little flat symbol, but you'll only ever see time signatures at the beginning. I'm just trying to go to another piece here. So here's another Debussy prelude, 6/8, 6 beats in a measure, eighth notes get the beat. So you see it written out right there. There's this really crazy key signature, not very fun. But then from that point forward, no time signature is written in there. Now in 6/8 time, 6 beats in a measure, quarter notes, eighth notes get the beat. So here's a quarter note, so that'll be 2 beats. 1, 2, 3, there's an eighth note. Then here's another quarter note, 4, 5, and then another eighth note, 6. So there's 6 beats, boom. Even with this, which looks messy, these are 16th notes, which there's 2 of them inside an eighth note, so these 2 would get 1 beat. There's an eighth note with a dot, like a beat and a half. This is kind of fun. I'm showing you such a complex thing here, but trust me, this adds up to 6, because it's like we get all of these subdividing rhythms. That is a bit cruel on you, but here's a dotted half note, and dotted half notes get 6 beats. So we got 6 beats all the way here. But yeah, so they're just a little summary on time signatures here. And just bear in mind at the initial stages, the ones you'll encounter will be 4/4, 3/4, 2/4. But yeah, I hope these broader principles make sense for you guys. Yeah, and please let me know in the comments if there's anything confusing about it. I realized once I started delving into the concept of time signatures, I can kind of just keep going and going and spiraling with just facts and facts. And I'm trying to just keep it more fundamental here, and down the road, I mean, I'll be doing so many videos I can extrapolate on some of these and get into more details. But I appreciate all you guys. Thanks for watching, have fun practicing, and we'll see you at the next video. Okay, cheers.